Hello again, gamers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm the Board Game Captain, and today I'm going to be reviewing another product for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So this is the Pathfinder Arcane spell cards, and is part of a line where they have a separate box for each of the spell lists. So they have one for Occult and one for Primal, and they have one for the Focus spell cards. And I'm going to be talking about who are these for, who would I recommend them to, and I'm going to rate them and review them and show you what comes in the box. But before we get started on that, I want to draw attention to the fact that I am drinking out of one of the mugs from my merch store over on Teespring. This is the Filler Up and Let's Roll mug. This comes in tons of different colors. You could also get the Tears of My Vanquished Opponents mug over there, as well as lots of different t-shirts in tons of different colors as well. If you want to get hooked up with some really cool gamer gear, head over to our Teespring store. There is a link to it in the description down below of this video. In addition, if you're in a position to and would like to help out the channel, you can join my Patreon. You can donate money to help support the channel. In addition, joining my Patreon will give you access to exclusive Patreon-only giveaways. And depending on what level you join at, it could also give you access to early videos before they're released to the general public, as well as behind-the-scenes videos to show you tell you a little bit about what's going on over here on the Board Game Captain. In addition, on my Patreon also is the only way you can specifically request reviews to certain classic games. If you want to see me do a review and tutorial on your favorite classic game, head over to my Patreon, also a link in the description down below. Now, the Pathfinder Arcane spell cards. So first thing, I want to thank Paizo for sending me this review copy of the Arcane spell cards. So let me show you first off the box. So you've got, this is the top of the box here. It says Arcane spell cards. It's got a little picture of what the cards look like. It says that also on the two sides here, as well as this side. And on this side here, we have the description. It says, magic explodes from your fingertips when you hold Pathfinder spell cards in hand. This must-have accessory for Arcane spellcasters contains more than 200 spell reference cards, covering every Arcane spell in the Pathfinder core rulebook and giving players immediate access to key game details at a glance. And then the bottom just has, the company logo and the price, which, by the way, is fairly affordable, only $30 for this box. So I want to start here because this may not be what you're expecting. It may not be being marketed to who you think it would be. Most of these other card sets are usually things that are marketed towards the Game Master. For instance, they had the Bestiary Battle cards, which were definitely marketed towards Game Masters. They also have, the Chase deck or the, the Crit Hit deck. All these things are usually marketed towards Game Masters. This one is marketed towards players. This is a player aid, which is why they've done it how they did in regard to release. I mean, if they had wanted to do this as a Game Master buy, what they probably would have done is a more expensive box that literally had one copy of every spell in the basic Pathfinder 2nd Edition rulebook, but they didn't do that. They separated them out to specific spell lists. So this is really not for Game Masters, because if you're a Game Master and you go to buy all of these, you're going to wind up with duplicate cards, because, there are some spells that are both in the Arcane spell list and the Occult spell list, or the Arcane spell list and the Primal spell list, for example. But if you're a player, usually you pick one spell list, and that's your spell list you're taking spells from. So this is really more for you. And in the case of the Arcane spell cards, this is for people who are using the Arcane spell list. So inside you have the entirety of all of the spells that are in the basic book in the Arcane spell list. Now they have some extra room here, which I have to assume is because they're planning to do little mini pack expansions that you could put in here for the Arcane spells that come in certain adventure paths or other expansion books for Pathfinder, which is nice. I like that they left a little bit extra room because, for instance, I'm currently playing with my group the Extinction Curse adventure path, and there are extra spells in there. So if they do release little packs of those, it'd be nice to be able to just put them in, and that's really cool. So what do you get? So these cards, which are organized basically from cantrips on up through the highest level spells, you get, so for instance, we're going to start here with Acid Splash. It's a pretty basic spell. Many people are familiar with Acid Splash. It's a nice cantrip and a definitely a spell that people jump on as an easy attack spell. So you've got the back shows the picture of the archetype of the wizard that they use in all of their products. And then on the front, you've got the full explanation of Acid Splash. So Acid Splash, cantrip 1. Acid, attack, cantrip, and evocation. Traditions are Arcane and Primal, so obviously if you bought the Primal box, there'd be a copy of this in the Primal one as well, which I'm aware because I actually have a spellcaster using Primal who has Acid Splash in my group right now. It takes 2 actions to cast it, so it's got somatic and verbal components. It's got a range of 30 feet, targets 1 creature. You splash a glob of acid that splatters creatures, making a spell attack. If you hit, you deal 1d6 acid damage plus 1 splash acid damage. On a critical success, the target also takes 1 persistent acid damage. Now, in addition to that, because they have plenty of extra room on the card, and this is something you see, especially on a lot of the lower level spells where they're going to have plenty of extra rules on the card, it specifically spells out for you what you get for the heightened versions. This is one of my favorite things about these. I love that they have these in here. So at heightened third, the initial damage increases to 1d6 plus your spell class casting ability modifier, and the persistent damage increases to 2. At 5th, the initial damage increases to 2d6 plus your spellcasting modifier, and the persistent damage increases to 3, and the splash damage increases to 2. At 7, the initial damage increases to 3d6 plus your spell modifier. The persistent damage increases to 4, and the splash damage increases to 3. And at 9th, the initial damage increases to 4d6 plus your modifier. The persistent damage increases to 5. And the splash damage increases to 4. These are a great quick reference. These are really nice. I could, as a game master, since I have some of these now, see me pulling some of these out for the NPC spellcasters or villain spellcasters. I could see myself doing that, but that's not really what this is about. I mean, you're going to have the rulebook in front of you. If you're prepared spellcasters, which can be a bit advanced, you're probably bookmarking or sticky tabbing the spell areas in the book. Now, not every player actually buys the main rulebook, as much as I would like them to, believe me. Some of them just rely on the fact that you're going to have the rulebook for the new role-playing game that you're game mastering. So in this case, half of my players have not gotten themselves a copy of the Pathfinder rulebook in my current group. But for cheaper than the rulebook, a spellcaster player who mainly wants to focus in on having 1, quick reference cards for the various spells in front of them, and 2, the ability to look through higher level spells to decide as they level up what spells are they going to want to get, so when they level up they can be like, I want that spell, I've been thinking about it, and you know what, I really want to get let me get a higher level spell so I can give this as a good example. I really want to get Hypnotic Pattern. And then maybe later on, they're like, oh, I've been waiting for this all this time. I finally want to get Cataclysm. You know, they can plan ahead and have their spells picked out because it's easier to lay these out for a specific spell list, like the Arcane spell list, and really weigh your options and be like, I like this spell better than that spell. When I level up, I'm getting this spell. And then during the game, again, the main reason for these is to have them out on the table as a quick reference, so you don't have to be like, okay, I shorthanded this, but I don't remember what it means. Can you look it up in the book for me? No, you just have your spell cards in front of you, and that's pretty awesome. Okay, so this is a little bit different for me because I very rarely am a player. I'm mostly a game master. So because of that, with the stuff that is game master aids, I have an easier time rating because I know exactly how I'm going to use these. Now, I can empathize with a spell casting player in regard to how cool this would be, especially being that it's an affordable $30 for every spell in your entire spell list, and that is really cool. But just to sink it in, I had a whole conversation with one of my players in my current group, a player who very rarely game masters and much more often plays as a player, and discussed with them what they thought about the concepts here, and they were like, yeah, I would buy this. I would definitely buy this if I was playing a spellcaster. They're actually not a spellcaster in the current group, but they were like, if I was playing as a spellcaster, I would want to get the one of these for whatever spellcasting tradition I have, so I could have the cheat sheets in front of me, and I wouldn't need to stop the game to ask you to look it up, and that'd be, very useful, very cool. So after discussing with them, I've come to my final conclusion. My final conclusion is I'm going to give, and this probably, by the way, is going to carry over for all of the various spell tradition decks, the, Arcane, Occult, Primal, whatever, what have you, all of them. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. This is a really, really cool player aid. Now, if you've already got the main book and you've bookmarked all your spells, you may not need this. It's not a necessary item. But if you don't have the book and you're not planning on getting the book and you would like a way to quickly look it up, I would say your money's probably better spent on getting one of these for your spellcasting tradition, because this is only $30. And I think most of the other larger ones are $30. It's only like the focus spells that's cheaper because it's a smaller number of cards. But all of these I think are around $30 a piece. And for a quick aid, one, like I said, to plan out your spells as you go up levels, and two, to have them out on the table while you're playing, this is $30 well spent. So especially if you don't have the main rulebook, this is a great aid, and I would definitely recommend this to players. Game Masters, less so, because you're going to wind up spending a lot more money getting all of them. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this to Game Masters, but to players where you only need to buy the one for whichever type of spell list you are planning to use. Heck yeah, $30 for just getting every spell in your spell list. That's awesome. So there you have it. Do you have any comments, questions, or concerns, either on this video or on the Pathfinder Arcane spell cards? Feel free to put them in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this review of a role-playing game product and you'd like to see me review more role-playing game products like this, be sure to give it a like, share it on all forms of social media, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on.